Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave.
On behalf of every father and every mother.
Wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors.
And paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have a good show for you this week. It's going to be first me presenting the news, as I always do. That'll be followed by our German aid to Ukraine report. That will be followed by a report by our contributor Bianade about the reconstruction efforts in Ukraine. And then we'll have a segment with a guest that we're going to bring on to discuss Russians who are often, as YouTube likes to say, taking a nap in Ukraine. So those are the segments we'll have this week. We want to thank everyone for tuning in. Definitely, if you're a new listener who came from Jake Bro's audience, we definitely appreciate you being here. We interviewed Jake Bro on Wednesday, as another Ukraine YouTuber. Had a nice interview with him. We really enjoyed it. We hope to have him back on at some point. So yeah, if you missed that, definitely check it out. If you want to see future interviews from us, we don't do a lot of interviews, but we try to have them on Sunday if possible. But sometimes it's better for our guests if we do it on a different day, like in this case. So by subscribing to the Tochnyi YouTube or the Twitter, we'll give you guys updates about when we do those interviews. So thanks so much. Of course, we are on Twitter. We're on Blue Sky. You can follow us there. We post some updates. A lot of our contributors who write articles will post like threads or summaries, or at least they'll mention when they publish an article. So it's a good source to keep up to date on everything our researchers are doing. So I think that's about it for my introduction. So I'll go ahead and jump right into the news. These are the main headlines as of December 1st, 2024. The Ukrainian military announced that it struck an oil storage facility in Russia's Rostov region, igniting a large fire. The attack targeted the Atlas oil depot, with reports indicating that at least 2 areas within the facility caught fire. This occurred in the Kamensky district, where local officials described it as a drone attack. The governor of the Rostov region confirmed that the industrial site had a fire and linked it to the drone attack. Media was shared capturing the blaze, with the images and footage widely circulated on social media. The targeted Atlas depot has been previously identified in Russian media as a supplier of fuel for military training operations. Ukraine's military stated that Atlas plays a role in supplying petroleum products to the Russian armed forces. This marks the 3rd attack on the facility in 2023, following earlier strikes in August. Ukraine's military intelligence agency reported the destruction of 3 advanced Russian radar systems in Crimea on November 29th. The systems targeted included 2 Podlet 48Y6K1 radars, valued at around $5 million each, and 1 Kosta 2E2 radar, costing around $30 million. These mobile systems are designed for detecting low-altitude air targets and are considered a key element of Russian air defense. The report follows an earlier claim by Ukrainian intelligence that another Podlet radar system in Crimea had been struck on November 28th. While Ukrainian officials have taken credit for both operations, no detailed information about the attacks has been disclosed, and independent verification remains unavailable. Ukraine's 3rd Assault Brigade announced the destruction of a North Korean Bolsaye-4 missile system in Kharkiv Oblast, supported by video evidence from the brigade's Windbreaker drone unit on November 30th. The Bolsaye-4 is known for its advanced anti-tank capabilities and has a range of around 10 to 25 kilometers, and is part of a growing list of North Korean military hardware used by Russia. The brigade reported that their drone pilots targeted the missile system, bombed enemy positions within a building, and executed strikes on hidden shelters, which forced Russian troops to abandon their cover. Additional assets destroyed during the operation included Ural trucks and a concealed Kamaz vehicle. Also, Ukraine's Ministry of Digital Transformation reported that a coordinated operation by the IT army led to significant disruptions among major Russian telecommunications providers, including Megaphone, MTS, Yota, Beeline, Rostelecom, T2, and Tinkoff Mobile. The operation affected the functionality of messaging platforms like Telegram and Discord, which are utilized by Russian armed forces for coordination. The ministry estimated that the economic impact on Russia would be around $360 million. Russian Lieutenant General Alexander Sonchik has been appointed as the acting commander of the Southern Military District, succeeding Gennady Anashkin, who held the position since May 2024. Russian media cited sources within the Ministry of Defense claiming that the change is part of a planned leadership rotation. However, some military bloggers suggest that the dismissal may be tied to setbacks on the Northern Front and his reluctance to provide an accurate assessment of the situation to senior commanders. Sonchik has been serving as commander of the 35th Combined Arms Army in the Eastern Military District since 2020 and participated in a May 2024 meeting with President Vladimir Putin while acting as the commander of the Eastern Military District. The Southern Military District plays a significant role in Russian operations, particularly the current offensive in Kurakhove in Donetsk Oblast. Ukrainian defense forces, led by the 46th Separate Airborne Brigade, have confirmed their control over the town despite Russian advances and the presence of military equipment. Russia has reportedly enlisted hundreds of mercenaries from Yemen to bolster its forces in the war against Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. These recruits initially promised lucrative employment, high wages, and even the possibility of Russian citizenship, were transported to Russia through a company linked to Yemen's Houthi militants. Upon arrival, they were forcibly conscripted into the Russian military and sent to fight on Ukraine's front lines. The recruitment effort is part of a broader Russian strategy to counter heavy military losses without initiating a full-scale mobilization in the country. Moscow has drawn on a range of foreign nationals and migrants, with recruits reportedly coming from Nepal, Somalia, India, Cuba, and other countries. The involvement of Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi movement signals a deepening tie between this group and Russia, particularly after there was a report indicating the possibility of weapons transfers as well as Russia sharing satellite data with the Houthis. Russian authorities have confirmed the capture of a British national, James Scott Rees-Anderson, who was allegedly fighting alongside Ukrainian forces during a military operation in southwest Kursk. The announcement came after the Leninsky District Court in Kursk remanded Anderson into custody, accusing him of engaging in armed activities on Russian territory. Pro-Kremlin Telegram channels circulated a video over the weekend showing a man, reportedly Anderson, with his hands restrained. In the video, he claims to have joined Ukraine's armed forces after being dismissed from the British Army in 2023. The court has accused Anderson of multiple offenses, including participation in combat, illegal border crossing, and affiliation with Ukraine's military forces, labeling them, quote, particularly serious crimes under Russian law. However, specific charges and the duration of his detention have remained undisclosed. The UK's Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, stated that the British authorities are aware of the situation and pledged to provide support for Anderson. Ukraine's vintage Yakovlev Yak-52 aircraft, originally a Soviet-era training plane from the 1970s, has reportedly resumed operations over Odessa as part of the city's counter-drone efforts. The plane, which is armed with basic weapons like shotguns, has proven effective in combating Russian surveillance drones, which are often used to identify targets for missile strikes. The Yak-52's recent return follows a hiatus of 4 months, attributed to Russian attempts to destroy the airfield in July. Reports indicate that during its 5-hour missions, the aircraft can consume up to 1,000 liters of fuel and successfully shoots down drones, such as during a recent mission where at least one Orlan was destroyed. Despite its rudimentary armament, the Yak-52 has demonstrated significant effectiveness in this role, with a reported record of downing over a dozen drones in a 3-month span. The cost efficiency of the Yak-52 is a major advantage, with operational expenses in the hundreds of dollars per flight hour, which is far less than the high value of the reconnaissance drones that it targets. Ukraine's main intelligence directorate has noted the Yak-52's success and initiated their own training programs for gunners to operate similar missions using locally manufactured Aeroproct A-22 sport planes. Starting January 1, 2025, Ukraine will implement mandatory basic military training for all men aged 18 to 25. The chairman of the Council of Reservists of the Armed Forces of Ukraine clarified that this initiative is not a mobilization effort, but aims to equip young citizens with essential military skills. The training will cover fundamental and professional competencies, including weapon handling and specialty selection, to familiarize participants with military operations and alleviate apprehensions. The approach is intended to ensure a prepared populace capable of contributing to national defense if necessary. In related news, the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine announced that beginning in the 2025-2026 academic year, all third-year university students will undergo basic military training. Deputy Minister Mikhailo Vinitsky emphasized that the measure is designed to provide students with knowledge in self-defense, weapon handling, and first aid, and is not connected to mobilization efforts. The training will be integrated into the curriculum for students aged 19 to 20, with preparations underway to establish training grounds and instructor programs. President Zelensky announced significant changes in Ukraine's military leadership. Major General Mikhailo Drapati has been appointed as the new commander of ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, succeeding Lieutenant General Alexander Pavliuk, who had served in the role since February 2024. Zelensky emphasized that these internal changes are essential to enhance the combat efficiency of the Army, improve the quality of servicemen's training, and introduce innovative approaches to personnel management. He noted that Major General Drapati is well respected within the military and has demonstrated his effectiveness on the battle, particularly in halting the Russian offensive in Kharkiv earlier this year. In addition to his appointment, Colonel Ola Apostol, who was formerly the commander of the 95th Air Assault Brigade, has been promoted to Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. President Zelensky said that both Drapati and Apostol have proven their efficiency on the battlefield and are expected to contribute significantly to ongoing strategy. That's it for operations this week. Let's now look at economy and aid. The United Kingdom has recently delivered a significant number of Storm Shadow cruise missiles to Ukraine, marking the first such transfer under Prime Minister Keir Starmer's tenure. According to Bloomberg, the deliveries occurred discreetly over the past several weeks in response to a shortage of long-range weaponry faced by Ukrainian forces. The shipments took place before the UK and the US decided to approve Ukrainian strikes within Russian territory. Officials from both nations indicated that the policy shift was influenced by Russia's deployment of North Korean troops into the war. The UK has consistently refrained from revealing the exact quantities of missiles transferred to Ukraine. The most recent confirmed shipment of Storm Shadows occurred in April during the administration of the former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The Norwegian parliament approved a significant increase in aid for Ukraine on November 28th, raising the 2025 support package to 35 billion Norwegian kroner, which is approximately $3.16 billion US dollars. The Norwegian government has emerged as a prominent supporter of Ukraine, providing extensive military and humanitarian aid. They have already allocated around 52.6 billion kroner, around $4.7 billion US dollars. Initially, the government proposed $1.4 billion in its 2025 state budget for Ukraine. However, opposition parties criticized the amount as inadequate. The new funding builds on Norway's earlier non-send support program, which was approved for funding around $6.8 billion US dollars to assist Ukraine through 2027, with an annual commitment of 15 billion kroner. The government has also proposed expanding the program to include another 12 billion US dollars in funding and extend the timeline to 2030. Ukraine's Ministry of Finance announced the receipt of $235 million US dollars in concessional funding from Japan, facilitated through two World Bank initiatives, the Resilient, Inclusive, and Sustainable Entrepreneurship Project and the Learning and Resilience in Education Under Crisis Project. The funding is another significant contribution from Japan, which has become a prominent supporter of Ukraine. Japan has committed over $12 billion US dollars in aid to Ukraine as of early 2024. Focusing on non-lethal military support, humanitarian aid, and infrastructure recovery. Japan has also imposed sanctions on more than 1,000 Russian individuals and entities, freezing assets and banning exports to organizations linked to the war effort, including financial institutions and military companies. Under the RISE project, Japan provided a $130 million US dollar loan aimed at addressing obstacles to private sector resilience and fostering sustainable economic growth in Ukraine. The LEARN project, funded with a $105 million loan in 2024, supports educational continuity by financing shelters, school buses, and other resources necessary for safe in-person learning. These projects operate under the Program for Results framework, which ties funding disbursement to the achievement of predefined goals. Ukraine plans to secure an additional $120 million through RISE and $95 million through LEARN by the end of 2024. Ukraine has secured a $100 million loan from South Korea to support its state budget, marking the first time Seoul has directly contributed to Ukraine's fiscal needs. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal stated that the funds will be allocated to the social sector to address budgetary expenses. The loan agreement is part of a broader framework signed in April between Kyiv and Seoul, allowing Ukraine to access around $2.1 billion in concessional loans over the period of 2024 to 2029. The terms include a 20-year repayment period with an annual interest rate of 1% and a 5-year grace period. The $100 million loan was formalized in October by Ukrainian Finance Minister Serhiy Marchenko through an agreement with the Export-Import Bank of Korea. Ukraine is grappling with a projected $35 million budget deficit for 2025 as the war with Russia enters its third year. To sustain its economy and war efforts, the country remains heavily dependent on external financing. A delegation from South Korea has also arrived in Ukraine to discuss further cooperation. The Biden administration is facing significant challenges in utilizing over $6.5 billion in authorized funds for weapon transfers to Ukraine as the deadline for their distribution approaches ahead of the presidential transition in January 2024. The Wall Street Journal reported that logistical and political obstacles have hindered the efficient allocation of these resources, leaving large sums unspent. Amid intensified Russian offensives, including advancements into Ukraine's Donetsk Oblast and the deployment of North Korean troops in Russia's Kursk Oblast, the Biden administration has requested an additional $24 billion from Congress. The request includes $8 billion for long-term weapon contracts for Ukraine and $16 billion for replenishing U.S. stockpiles. The administration would need to deliver over $100 million worth of weapons daily to fully allocate the remaining funds by January 20th, the date of the inauguration. The goal has been described as unattainable by congressional officials given logistical constraints. Currently, the Pentagon focuses on transferring around $500 million to $750 million packages worth of equipment monthly, prioritizing ammunition and artillery due to their ease of transport. The White House has since shifted its messaging, now emphasizing manpower shortages as a more pressing issue for Ukraine than equipment. Officials estimate that Ukraine requires an additional 160,000 troops to stabilize the front lines. Ukraine has secured a $4.8 billion loan from the World Bank under the Public Expenditures for Administrative Capacity Endurance Project, or PEACE project. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said that this represents the largest investment initiative in the World Bank's history, aimed at supporting Ukraine's reforms across various sectors, including social services, education, healthcare, agriculture, and reconstruction. Since the onset of the invasion, Ukraine has mobilized nearly $50 billion through World Bank mechanisms. The PEACE project plays a crucial role in sustaining Ukraine's administrative functions and public services. The substantial financial investment is expected to bolster Ukraine's capacity to implement critical reforms and maintain essential public services amid the war. Ukraine's 3 operational nuclear power plants, Khmelnytsky, Rivne, and South Ukraine, reduced electricity generation on Thursday morning as a precautionary response to recent attacks on the country's energy infrastructure. The International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi announced the measures, emphasizing the heightened risk to nuclear safety. This marks the second time in less than 2 weeks that these facilities have lowered output amidst widespread military activity and ongoing air raid alarms. As a result, all 9 reactors at the 3 plants decreased their power levels, with 1 reactor at the Rivne plant disconnected from the grid. Despite the precautionary measures, external power supply remains intact at all plants, although the Khmelnytsky plant experienced disconnections from 2 power lines. Grossi expressed a deep concern over the vulnerability of Ukraine's energy infrastructure, noting its critical role in ensuring nuclear safety. While no direct damage to the nuclear plants has been reported, recent strikes have once again targeted electrical substations essential for transmitting and receiving power. These facilities were previously damaged during attacks in August, further compromising the grid's reliability. IAEA teams, which recently assessed substations across Ukraine, confirmed extensive damage that significantly reduced the grid's ability to supply off-site power to the nuclear plants. During Thursday's military activity, IAEA personnel stationed in Ukraine were forced to seek shelter due to air raid alarms. Russia's central bank announced that it will halt foreign currency purchases on the domestic market for the remainder of 2024 as the ruble continues its downward trend, reaching its weakest levels since the start of Russia's invasion in early 2022. The suspension, which is effective Thursday and lasts until December 31st, is intended to mitigate the financial market's volatility. The bank indicated that these purchases would resume gradually in 2025. This is the second such suspension, following a similar move from August to December 2023 when the bank paused foreign currency buying to ease pressure on the struggling ruble. The currency recently hit a low of 113 rubles to the dollar, the weakest its value has been in more than 32 months. The ruble's devaluation has mixed implications for the Russian economy. While the finance minister noted that a weaker ruble could benefit exporters by making Russian goods cheaper on international markets, the decline also exacerbates domestic inflation. Reuters estimates that the ruble's recent fall could add 1.5 percentage points to the current inflation rate of 8.5%. In addition to halting purchases, the central bank announced plans to continue selling foreign currency through the country's sovereign wealth fund. It intends to sell an equivalent of 8.4 billion rubles daily during the second half of 2024 to stabilize financial conditions further. A new drone manufacturing plant is set to be established in Finland through a partnership between Finnish defense company Summa Defense and Ukrainian companies. The joint venture aims to address the growing demand for unmanned aerial, ground, and maritime systems for Ukraine, the European Union, and NATO. The primary goal of the plant is to enhance the production capacity of drones for military and civilian purposes, particularly those needed for Ukraine's defense efforts, while also scaling up mass production in Finland and across Europe. The project is slated to begin drone mass production by the first half of 2025. To facilitate the initiative, Summa Defense Limited will create a subsidiary, Summa Drones Limited, which will oversee the establishment of the manufacturing plant in Finland. Summa Drones will form a joint venture with Ukrainian companies, including Court, Elf Systems, Sky Assist, MPS Development, and others, and the Finnish side will maintain a controlling stake. The collaboration is seen as a strategic investment to bolster the supply chain for critical drone technologies. That's it for economics. Up next is international relations. Russia's defense minister Andrei Belousov met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to discuss strengthening military ties between their nations. According to North Korean state media, the visit aimed to enhance both countries' defense capabilities and foster mutual cooperations between their armed forces. Belousov acknowledged that relations between Russia and North Korea are expanding across multiple domains, particularly military collaboration, and Kim reaffirmed his unwavering support for Russia's, quote, self-defense actions in Ukraine, describing his country's alignment with Moscow as, quote, steadfast. Syrian authorities have closed Aleppo airport and blocked access to all roads leading into the city as opposition forces, spearheaded by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, advanced into the area. This marks a significant change, with rebel fighters reaching Aleppo nearly a decade after Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces reclaimed the city in 2016. The opposition's rapid progress followed a surprise offensive targeting government-controlled settlements. Rebel commander Mustafa Abdul Jabbar attributed their success to a manpower shortage on the government side, which has traditionally relied on Iranian support. The offensive is seen as retaliation for intensified Russian and Syrian airstrikes on civilians in rebel-held Idlib and an attempt to preempt further Syrian army attacks. In response, the Syrian army has reportedly received orders to withdraw from key areas of Aleppo overtaken by the rebels. Two military sources indicated that Russia has pledged additional military aid to bolster the Assad regime, with new equipment expected to arrive within 72 hours. And my last piece of news for this week. In Tbilisi, Georgian police are allegedly deploying chemical irritants and water cannons against pro-European Union protesters, marking a notable escalation in crowd control tactics. The demonstrations, which began on the night of November 28th, erupted after the government announced it would suspend EU accession talks until 2028. The decision follows a disputed election that saw the ruling Georgian Dream Party claim a victory amid allegations of widespread irregularities. The move has further solidified Georgia's pivot away from the EU and toward closer ties with Russia, reversing years of Euro-Atlantic integration efforts. Journalists on the ground, including Aka Zarkua, reported symptoms among the demonstrators consistent with chemical exposure, such as severe eye irritation and breathing difficulties. Zarkua noted that these effects were unprecedented in recent Georgian protests, suggesting that the substances capable of causing chemical irritation may have been added to the water used in the cannons. This shift has drawn criticism in its indiscriminate impact on protesters, bystanders, and journalists alike. On the second night of protests, police are known to have intensified their crackdown, detaining at least 107 people and employing various crowd control measures simultaneously. Observers describe the police response as unprecedented in recent years, with journalists among those targeted. Zarkua noted a significant escalation in force, stating that while law enforcement previously failed to protect journalists, they now appear to actively target them. And that wraps up the news for this week, so we will now move to the next segment.
Hello guys, sadly I'm not on the panel this week as I enjoy some well-earned private time, but to say it with the famous words of a powerful Austrian actor, I'll be back. Enough cringe for today. I of course don't just leave you hanging, so I pre-recorded this week's most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine. Starting with a longer update on Tuesday, where I first reported that the Dresden Fire Brigade donated 2 rescue and emergency vehicles to the Ukrainian city of Khmelnytsky. I'm so sorry, I 100% butchered that name. Sorry for that, but I'm very, very bad with Ukrainian names. In addition, a Volkswagen Crafter with a wheelchair ramp was also donated to the German by the German International Cooperation Society to the city's hospital. On the same day, I reported that the German government co-financed a project led by the New Way charitable organization, which provided 2.5 tons of solid fuel to more than 200 Ukrainian families in the Kherson region to fuel their homes during the winter. And as the last item of Tuesday, the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action is making a further 65 million euros available to the Ukrainian Energy Support Fund. Ukraine is using this fund to finance spare parts and equipment for destroyed energy infrastructure. Part of the funds is earmarked for green energy transition projects. For example, critical public facilities like schools or hospitals are being equipped with photovoltaic systems and battery storage systems, which reduces dependence on generators and fossil fuels. I announced on Wednesday that the German city of Teltow, in cooperation with some partners, was able to organize a larger donation to its Ukrainian twin city, Kotyn. Currently, 96 desks and 143 chairs, which served as school furniture in Germany, are being delivered to the small town in western Ukraine, which, with a population of just 20,000 people, has taken in more than 7,000 internally displaced Ukrainians, therefore suffering under the consequences. And as the last item of this week, the German federal state of Schleswig-Holstein will make about 500,000 euros available for the procurement of solar modules for Kherson. This was announced by Minister President Daniel Günther during a joint press conference with Alexander Prokudin, governor of the Kherson Oblast. And yeah, that's it for my segment this week. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you, pre-recorded Germany to Ukraine. So up next, we're going to have a presentation from our contributor Bionade about Ukrainian reconstruction. He's going to give us an update on that. Over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I hope you can hear me well. For everyone who wanted to hear it, it's pronounced Khmelnytsky. So Thank you for your attempt, Maurice. Was a good try. Yeah, we will talk about reconstruction and especially rebuilding Ukraine today. I have prepared a little bit of this, and I think if we share my monitor, we can actually see something. So, all right, then let's jump right into it. So basically, there was a conference about rebuilding Ukraine in Warsaw. It was the, I think, fourth version of this conference. Yeah, under the title "Rebuilding Ukraine." So the two-day Rebuild Ukraine Construction and Energy Conference and exhibition took place in Warsaw, bringing together government leaders, international organizations, and businesses to support Ukraine's reconstruction. Organized by the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine in collaboration with the European Commission. The event aimed to accelerate recovery efforts in infrastructure, energy, and housing while fostering Ukraine's integration into the European Union. Over 5,500 participants from 30 countries, including 500 international companies and 63 Ukrainian businesses, attended the event to explore investment opportunities. On day one, we had the topic strategic priorities and partnership building. The Ministry for Development of Communities and Territories of Ukraine had critical discussions with international partners, highlighting short and long-term recovery goals. The ministry emphasized its role in coordinating efforts between government bodies, communities, and global partners to prioritize projects effectively. Yeah, we had two important points here. The first point is frontline versus the rear regions. Recovery strategies differ based on the regional needs. The frontline areas focus on ensuring access to essential services like water, heating, and electricity, while in safer regions, yeah, Ukraine can try to attract private investment and boost the local economy. And the other point is the community engagement, which is yeah, about training communities to collaborate with international organizations. It's essential to securing resources for the recovery projects, and transparency, accountability are ensured through digital tools such as a dream ecosystem. We talked about this in the last episode, yeah, and episodes actually, how we can use the dream system, and we saw how yeah, transparent it is in documenting Ukraine's recovery. The Deputy Prime Minister Marina Tenisyuk emphasized the importance of applying the Build Back Better principle to the community recovery projects. So basically, build back better, that you don't just try to bring it back to the original state, but you try to get it standards, especially European standards, which this whole initiatives are usually aimed. And we will see in the further reporting about this that most of these projects yeah, are basically laying the groundwork and the basework for standards which are compliant with the standards of the European Union. On day two, we had coordination and donor support. The second day kicked off with a meeting of the Ukrainian donor platform, the UDP operations group, attended by Prime Minister Denis Mihal and Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Kuleba. Mihal expressed gratitude to international partners and stressed the need for ongoing collaboration. Deputy Prime Minister Kuleba outlined recovery priorities and project progress, highlighting the operations group's role as a central hub for information sharing and project coordination. The group includes ministries, recovery commissioners, and stakeholders. Also here, we had two important key points, which were the focus on the water management. Deputy Minister Denisyuk opened with the International Water Forum, emphasized the need of modernized water and wastewater infrastructure to meet EU standards. Transparent governments and investor engagement are critical to attract funds for these projects. The second key point here was the community pavilion visits. Ministry officials visited community representatives to discuss recovery initiatives. Frontline communities prioritize building shelters, restoring essential services, and securing autonomous energy sources. Presenting projects through the DREAM ecosystem and single project portfolio was encouraged to ensure the strategic alignment. Yeah, the key takeaways and the future directions. The Rebuild Ukraine event highlighted the importance of public and private partnerships in recovery. Deputy Prime Minister Denisyuk stressed that projects should address community-specific needs, focusing on housing, life support systems, and energy security. Public investment management reforms and PPP projects are vital tools for Ukraine's recovery. With continued international support and effective coordination, Ukraine aims to achieve swift and impactful recovery outcomes, laying the foundation for sustainable development and EU integration. Yeah, that was our first topic about rebuilding Ukraine. This conference happened this November, from the 13th to the 14th of November. And as you can see on the website, will also happening in a similar format in 2025, also again in Warsaw, in Poland. Another story from the last weeks is that Ukraine launched a Green Transition Office with the support of the United Kingdom. Ukraine, with backing of the United Kingdom, has officially launched the Green Economy Transition Office, an independent advisory body designated to support the government in advancing green reforms under the National Energy and Climate Plan. National Energy and Climate Plan 2030 is set. The Ministry of the Development of Communities and Territories of Ukraine plays a central role in these initiatives, focusing on energy efficiency policies and reforms outlined in the NECP 2030 paper. The overarching objective is to leverage the green transition as a catalyst for Ukraine's recovery, modernization, and economic growth while safeguarding the competitiveness of Ukrainian industries. A long-term priority is alignment of these efforts with Ukraine's ambitions to join the European Union. Yeah, key developments and initiatives. The Deputy Minister, Marina Denisyuk, highlighted the ministry's ongoing initiatives during the climate and energy policy of Ukraine in the process of the accession to the EU conference. She emphasized the ministry achievements in implementing measures to enhance the energy efficiency and promote sustainability. Significant progress has been made in harmonizing Ukraine's legislation with the European Energy Efficiency Directive, and over 30 bylaws have been adopted, creating a robust legal framework to ensure the efficient energy use. This progress was commended as in a recent European Commission report. So, as I mentioned, all and most of these initiatives, and especially the Ministry for Development of Communities, Territories, and in Ukraine, they have a really, really central role in implementing all these rules and all these steps to bring Ukraine as a country closer to the European Union and make it possible to join the European Union. So, strengthening international cooperations. During the conference, Yulia Sviridenko, Ukraine's first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy, and Martin Harris, the UK Ambassador to Ukraine, signed a memorandum to enhance collaboration on the NCP implementation. This partnership of this partnership is part of a broader strategy towards the Ukraine's energy independence, accelerating EU integration, and meet international climate commitments. The strategic goals and impacts. The NECP aims to drive decarbonization, boost investment into green economy, and foster sustainable development. The key measures include building insulation and energy efficiency, modernizing infrastructure to reduce energy consumption, renewable energy and cogeneration, expanding the use of renewable energy sources and installing cogeneration units. We also had this in a segment before when we talked about the building in Kyiv, which basically equipped their roof with solar and had an energy storage to still have an emergency, or if there's no electricity, have power for the elevators, for example. So we can see all these points outlined in these papers we already saw in Ukraine implemented and starting to get implemented. And it's quite nice to see we have sometimes even such actual examples for this. Yeah, and also the third point are smart systems and consumer engagement, introducing intelligent measuring systems and promoting behavioral changes in energy use. Yeah, the behavioral changes we sadly see with all the electricity outages and now the implemented electricity plans. As far as I heard from friends in Kyiv, they have 3 hours electricity, 9 hours no electricity, then again for 3 hours electricity, and then 9 hours no electricity. That's the regular cycle now. And you have to sadly implement or change your behavior in a way so you can use the energy useful and the time with energy. Marina Densiuk emphasized that implementing the NEC is a crucial achievement for long-term economic stability and energy security. The systematic approach aims to encourage the adaptation of modern technologies, reduce energy consumption, and support sustainable growth. The launch of the Green Transition Office marks a significant milestone in Ukraine's journey towards a sustainable future, reinforcing collaboration with international partners to address global climate challenges. That's a bit about Ukraine, the rebuilding, their efforts, and how the policy go in these directions. And we will have an eye on this and watch it for you closely in the future. Talk more about this. All right. So I think we are through. We don't have any questions. I would give it back to Joseph or Erland.
Thank you, Mr. Bionade. So, Erland, up next, are we going to talk about Daniela's article, or did you want to do something else?
Well, I guess if Daniel is ready, we can start with his article.
Yeah, I am ready.
And I want to ask, are you preferring that I show the images or the article?
I think you can go through the images. They are essentially laid out in the same order, more or less, that you can find in the article. So if someone would like to follow the article as well, it will be pretty much streamlined with the article. So maybe just post the address to the article. So if they want to open while I speak, they can do that. But I think showing each image one by one is better because text doesn't show much.
Okay.
And it's a very long article, I recognize that.
I'll post the link in the description, but maybe you can give an intro briefly to why you started writing this article and what's the kind of idea behind it.
Yeah, of course. So the main, first of all, this article is the result of a research done in a collective effort within Tochnyi. I was the main author, but there were at least other two people who contributed, and they didn't want to show on their research, but we worked essentially on the main aspect, which was understanding what can be done in case Ukraine has full leverage on the use of ATACMS and Storm Shadow at the moment, and possibly in the close future Taurus from Germany. And this was driven by the fact that when you speak with the analysts, especially from the US, you heard a lot of skepticism regarding the use of this long-range weapon currently during this stage of the conflict. And the main point that many of these analysts make is that the moment in which these type of weapons were meaningful and very much effective has been gone. And so granting Ukraine the capability of striking so trying to essentially give them the use of the weapon now would be essentially pretty much useless. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, you can find the article on the Tochnyi website. It's either under post or you can just scroll down here. It's this one. Reaching Further Without Limits is the title.
Yeah, and so the article main point was trying to understand if this was true. So if the time essentially, if there is a time at all, but in reality, what we discovered not only by doing the actual research on what type of target is available, but also trying to study how long-range weapons are used within Western countries. And to this, I would like to do a big thanks to Fabian Hoffman, who wrote a magnificent and proper research article, which has been published a few months ago and is completely accessible, and the link is within the article. And this was this is a very good resource for everyone, for anyone who would like to understand more about what long-range strike weapon is, and what can do, and why. And this article essentially is an extension of that research with a particular focus on Ukraine, and of course written for a more wide audience, because that article is a proper academic article. It's very well written with a lot of resources as well. And so the first thing that we introduce essentially is a kind of map. I don't know if you want to show is the first image that I sent to you. Yes, this one. So this essentially is a representation of the current long-range weapon available or nearly available. Taurus should be in Ukraine potentially in the next year, but it can be even replaced by other type of weapon, including Grom-2 or other Ukraine-based weapon. But in that case, the fact that the Ukrainians have limits would completely disappear, because it's their own weapon. And of course, we tried to show also visually a map that we realized using our own data or data gathered from other OSINT sources. So in this map, you can look at presence of ammo depot, oil refineries, air bases, distilleries, and finally a railway substation. Now, these are only one part of the potential target that you can get, but if you start to put everything on a single map, then essentially you don't see much. But what is very much important in this image is showing how is important to have a layered or a different type of, like we say, a tiered approach to longer range strike, because you can see that by using a 300 kilometer range weapon, in this case is ATACMS, you can reach until a certain point. You can hit most of, for example, the railway substation, so you can try to hamper the logistic of the front line, but also there is a very large amount of airfield, oil refineries, and also a good amount of ammo depot. So the damage that you can actually do is substantial. And then, of course, the more you increase the range of able, in case you want to use a Storm Shadow or even Taurus, you can essentially reach as far as beyond Moscow in some cases. And you can also start to see we have different color scheme for each. So when is black is destroyed, when is gray is decommissioned, and when is orange, so when the marking is orange. I don't know if you want to zoom on the map just to show better that detail, but you can see that some of these ammo depot, for example, Toropets and or other distilleries have been hit quite hard during this period. And many people may laugh at the fact that we are, Ukraine is attacking distilleries, but the reason is pretty much military, because these distilleries can and produce a significant amount of chemicals and alcohols, and which are useful for the fabrication of lubricant and other chemicals that are used in weapons. And Russians are quite open about the use of distilleries for this scope. You can find on VK a lot of information about that. So this is not, these strikes are not intended to hamper vodka production in Russia. This is maybe an indirect objective or achievement, but the main one is hampering the production of chemicals which are then used for other application. And so the article goes through a series of potential strikes areas, so a target that we identified, which should be image 2A and 2B. For example, within the 300 kilometer range, you have the 19th and the 17th, 67th arsenal. This is the 19th. And these are particular interesting arsenals. This has been already hit twice, but still the reason why we mentioned these two is because their extension and the substantial presence of Soviet era ECM. ECM stands for heart covered magazine. In this case, you can see those a bit above, there, exactly. In that area you can spot them, and in the previous base you can find a lot more of them. So these are of course hardened target, so the drone attacks that we have seen can do pretty much nothing to this type of ammo depot, but they can of course destroy or damage other structures which are not as protected as we have seen in previous strike on the 67th arsenal. So, and this is pretty much within HIMARS range. If you go to then, I think it's 3A and 3B, we identified a couple of very large oil refinery. These are two of the largest. I just picked two because there are four in HIMARS range, and they are all in the southern western part of Russia, and they together combined produce up to 31.3 million ton of oil per year. So it's a very large amount of production. And so these are targets that are very difficult to protect because you cannot harden them as you can do with an ammo depot. And of course, we continued by extending the range. So we went forward with the other two sites, this time in Storm Shadow or Scalp EG range, and this is the 5th, and the next one is the 68th arsenal. Now, these are two very much important arsenal, because one had the 68, this one that we are looking at, is quite modernized, is something that we define as a class 2 ammo depot, because they host a significant amount of new modern ECM. You can find them everywhere in the site. They are very similar to the Toropets one, essentially, and only in these ammo depot there are 31 ECM, and so this is a particularly interesting thing, because these are very large ammo depot, and this other one instead is particular because it has a significant amount, 18 Soviet era ECM, but also an ammunition production site that you can find just on the left. Yes, there. So the article essentially starts by introducing these target and trying to show that, well, it's true that using a long-range strike sometimes can be more or less effective. That's true, but this is because these type of military activities are situational and also depends on what is occurring on the front line and in general in the campaign. And one of the reasons that we found, and probably is the key on why, especially from US, there is a lot of these criticism regarding the extension of the usage of this weapon, is because US doctrine have LRS and even very long-range weapon like Tomahawk, but they use these in a very initial stage where they essentially are shaping the ground for a very large land maneuver. And so in their perspective, they say, okay, but Ukraine is not going to do these, so essentially there is no potential to benefit from the impact of a large-scale long-range strike. But this is not true, and the reason is in the article, and I'm going to try to explain to you tonight. But the main point that I want the listener to understand is that there are two different wars at the moment. One is a large-scale combat operation with a peer adversary, which is in a phase of attrition. And the other one is a war where against, for example, Iraq. So, of course, in that case, you point to destroy as much infrastructure, military outpost, and military capabilities in order to allow your attacking force to have the maximum effect as possible. But this is, you can do this only if you expect to fight for a quite limited amount of time, if you compare it with a 3-year, now is 3-year war. So when I listen at these type of critic against the campaign for allowing Ukraine to strike fully on Russian territory, I'm becoming more sad, let's say, because these show, in the best case scenario, a series of very important and also expert people which are not thinking in a broad way. So they are focusing on what is the past. But what is the current present is a completely different war, where we have an adversary, Russia, which has significant amount of resources, which at some point will end up on the front line. And if you do nothing to destroy them before they arrive on the front line, you have to wait for them to arrive, destroy, and repeat. And this is not sustainable, of course, for different reasons. So this is why it's so important that the international community and the politicians understand this, and understand that this is a fallacy of thinking, oh, well, these weapons now are not any more effective. Yeah, now we are showing essentially the front line, which at the moment are quasi frozen. In reality, Russians are doing all they can to push as much as possible until Trump will come to office. This is essentially a truth that is consolidated.
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting that you're bringing up the different points of view that has been heavily discussed in the last 1.5 years to 2 years, mainly about the effectiveness of Ukraine receiving long-range strike capabilities. There's been significant analysts that have said repeatedly that the so-called window of opportunity for Ukraine to decisively make a difference with the LRS capabilities is past, but they are not. So your point of view, and I, as far as I understand it, I think I share that point of view, is that that phase of the war where there was a possibility for one of the sides to decide the war's outcome with some sort of breakthrough, which leads to a strategic victory on the battlefield, is kind of past. And we're in an attritional war where, yes, there is exchange of territory. Russians are gaining important territory very, very slowly, though, in the Donbass. And Ukraine has pushed the Russians in Kursk, also been quite successful in pushing them out of Kharkiv the last year. But the war is not decided in this domain. The war is decided in the attritional domain, and giving Ukraine long-range strike capabilities might contribute to that attritional aspect, not only by actually destroying equipment and ammunition, but also extending Ukraine's ability to keep up by slowing down the Russian offensive. Is that how I understand your point of view, Daniela?
Yeah, totally. And I would like also to add more. There is also an important aspect, which is also political and psychological. And these, of course, enter into an area that, of course, is difficult to quantify, because how you quantify the psychological aspect on population. But imagine that for 3 years, Russia has been able to bomb any part of Ukraine with impunity, and also to stage offensive, which have resulted then in disasters for them. Think about the second offensive on Kharkiv. But still have caused problem and the logistical issues and challenges to the Ukrainian armed forces. And these have been possible not only for mistake like not building proper defenses, other stuff like this, but also because Ukraine was not able to strike those forces. And also to probably in the staging phase, they were not even able to stop trains or stop ammunition being stocked, because they may be able to see that, but they were not able to strike. And also, many people say, oh, but Ukraine has a very good amount of long-range drones which can be used. And yes, that's true. But the main problem of drones is that drones are moving at a much lower speed. And by doing this, these are much less effective in countering targets that may move in a few hours or in even in a few days. And also they lack of the penetration capabilities that a ballistic missile or a cruise missile with a dual charge have. So drones can do a lot. For example, for oil refineries and for other lightly armored target, they can do a lot, of course, if used properly in swarm, committing also a significant amount of resources, because we don't have to be fooled by the fact that the Russians are struggling in contain these phenomena, but because they have a larger territories, they have problem with intercepting these, of course, but also because Ukraine is committing a lot of resources on that, resources that are not put on other things. So in my opinion, by enabling the full use of this weapon, you create a more effective long-range campaign that can also create a real problem to the Russian. And this graph that you are showing has been reprocessed by me, but mostly by Chris, who have done a magnificent work in this article, because all the graphics that you see are done by him. I think except the picture of the site that I did on myself, but all the other graphics have been done by him. And this is one which I took from a very expert Polish analyst. I hope I don't misspell his name. Is Maciej Korowaj on the website. On the post, I put the reference to his tweet, which contains a lot of detail regarding Russian logistics. He is a very big expert on this. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to try to extend the work that he have done he essentially extended these until the 300 kilometer, but then we start to work on Storm Shadow, Taurus, and what you can see is that Russia has a pretty solid, at least on paper, logistic, but which relies on a series of things that have to happen. It's like a chain, essentially, to simplify to our audience. You can see we have trains uh, uh, of different type, of different size. Then we have trucks, and of course we have a mixture of different type of trucks, which can bring the supply from the deep logistic, which is everything below 700 kilometers, but well within Russia, to the essentially last mile, to the current front line. And the beautiful things about this graph, which I encourage everyone who is going to read the article to go through that, is the fact that you have 85 kilometer, 150 kilometer, 300 kilometer. So you can see how it is designed, and you can see how Western long-range weapons were designed. If you look, HIMARS or GMLRS are designed to strike 85 kilometers, which is essentially the frontline logistic, which was what the Ukrainians have destroyed essentially during the first summer, when we have seen all those very large explosion of ammo depot within occupied Ukraine, and very much in occupied Ukraine, which enable also a lot of the success of the Kharkiv and Kherson offensive. But after that, as you remember, they start to struggle because the Russians modify their approach, and also because the Ukraine was not able to strike deeper. In fact, you can see that there is a frontline logistic that is around between 85 and 150 kilometers, and then of course it grows much deeper, because you can go at 300 kilometers, where you start to have real ammo depot like the one in Toropets, which is around 450. And you can see also the incredible use of train that is needed to move a large amount of equipment. So we are talking about hundreds and hundreds of railway tracks. So these show us that the possibility of striking deeper will cut and will create more problem to the Russian logistic. And the point is, many analysts may say, okay, but they will just move further, and then what? You have created more burden on their logistic, which will stay. It's true that you are not going to exploit it at the maximum, because of course at some point they will adapt, but you have pushed their logistic even further, creating an even bigger problem. Because imagine having to bring heavy parts or heavy ammunition for directly from 700 kilometers to the front line, and you don't have much capability of stopping in order to stock these and then redistribute. It's going to become a very big problem. And we are essentially saying to the Russian, look, we are not going to allow Ukraine to do this, so you can keep your ammo safe, which is completely a no sense, because if Ukraine was able and will be able to strike deeper, all these essentially false haven for the Russian will disappear. And even the dilemma, or where I going to put my ammunition, where I'm going to hide all my stuff, will become a problem. Because I did more analysis that are not published, and the Russian do not have a very good ammo depot within 300 kilometers from the front line. There are only few, and those few are already been attacked, or probably are already under threat. And the Ukraine has been able to attack Toropets and other very quite deep ammo depot, which were already in a good state, good ammo depot, so with a very good defense and so on. So if Ukraine can strike these ammo depot, for Russia will be much more complicated moving material and being able to have storage that is safe enough. So, of course, this doesn't mean that automatically the war will end, but you will increase the difficulties for your adversary, which ultimately will become better in a perspective of war of attrition. I don't know if you have any question or there is any question.
No, thank you. I tried to visualize it on the screen.
Oh no, yeah.
Talking.
We so just for the audience, we decided to classify the different type of ammo depot depending on some feature, and we came out with 3 classes. There is also a 3 plus, which is only Murmansk. Murmansk is completely a different thing, but yeah, Murmansk is very much in a fortress, we can say, but with its own weakness. But it's not the point of today's talk. The point is that if you go in the previous slide where I show the different ammo depot, you will see that there are some ammo depot that essentially have, I think is a 2A and 2B. Yeah, this one is a classical example of an ammo depot that we call class 2. Why class 2? Because it has covered ECM from Soviet era. So these are quite old ammo depot. They are from the Soviet era, but they have been maintained in a pretty decent state. So they are quite safe, quite extended. And one very characteristic of Soviet era ammo depot, they are covered in forest. And the reason is not mainly for blast protection, as we have seen even Toropets, that when you have a proper blast, everything goes off, but to hide from a not very accurate eye ammo depot. Especially the ECM are very well hidden in the forest. And whatever is before class 1 essentially is an ammo depot that looks like this, but doesn't have hard-covered magazine, so only above ground. And most of the time, these ammo depot have open storage, which is most of the time is a very easy target, and also pretty unhardened depot. This is another class 2, but this show a lot of the point. You can, if you zoom, you will find the ECM, you will find the open ground storage, and also there is an increase in class 2. Normally, you see also an increase in use of embankment. Those are open storage, now empty, of course, but this gives you an idea. And a class 3 essentially is, you see immediately when I talk about a class 3, because it is very much different also now it looks like in terms of landscape. Most of the time you have nearly no tree, everything has been flattened out, and pretty much whatever looks like toropets or try to go backward. There is no. There is one from I think it's 3A or 3B. Yeah, the other one. This one is a class 3, and you can recognize by the presence of more modern ECM. And if you zoom on the bottom of the ammo depot, you can clearly see them. So now I don't want to dive too much into this, but you can see how they look like, and this is exactly how a class 3 looks like. And Russia has not many of these, and most are far away from the front line, beyond 300 kilometers. So by destroying these ammo depot or making them a threat, you will slow down very much the capability of the Russian of bringing stuff on the front line. You will never stop because, of course, it is impossible. You don't have enough missile, but you will hamper. And this is another graph that show just a little bit of the surface of the problem of logistics. So Andrew with his team has been tracking losses from all the spectrum for both sides. And I was working, and I'm still interested in FPV drone a lot. Now, just looking at FPV drone, so just a little bit, you can see the losses, the staggering losses and of logistical vehicle. These are LOF, which essentially are small trucks that are used for moving people, but also mostly supply to the very short part. So essentially, the last mile, what you can see in the last mile of from the frontline logistic and to the zero line. But there is also the next one, which is on track, and both show a significant amount of losses for trucks. So Russia is experiencing a very high level of attrition, in particular on vehicles, also on manpower. But of course, they play on that side saying, okay, but we have a lot of people, so we don't really care. And last but not least, this is an extra picture. This is the 120 arsenal, and is very, very far away from classical weapon. I mean, this one is within, I think this is within Storm Shadow range, nearly. So probably Taurus would be more ideal, because people will say, but if it's in Storm Shadow range, why you would use Taurus? Because Taurus has much longer range. So this means that when you attack with cruise missile, you don't go for a straight route. So you try to navigate and trying to use also, you try also to fly very low. So the consumption are very high. So you may not arrive always on a straight line. So Taurus would give much more leverage on what can be done. And this is a very important side, because of course this image probably is old. So those vehicles probably are all gone. But this is a logistical point, because they repair vehicle and they repair artillery, especially barrel. So if you destroy something like that, which is essentially actively contributing to contribute to the war effort from the Russian side, you will create a very big problem, because there are not many facilities like that. So by doing this, you slowly attire not only the vehicles, not only the people, but also the capabilities that build an army, which is not only what is on the front line or in the 85 kilometer, but the on front, because this is Russia. So this is something that need to be hit if you want to have at some point a capability of a chance to go on the offensive. And in the article, I also go through the very big problem in terms of artillery. I don't want to drag this too much, but essentially, Russians are using a different caliber and different type of artillery barrel. And this creates a very big problem because not all the 152 are compatible with all the howitzer. This is so big list, and it can even go further, but we limited on artillery and field gun. And so there is a serious problem for the Russian because not all the 152, 122 are compatible across all the gun. And now they are using also 130 millimeter field gun, which essentially are very old system. So now I tried to
You
cut.
didn't. Hey, you forgot to add the North Korean 170 millimeter one.
Yes, and this is another point because you see, we laugh. Okay, the 170 millimeter is not a bad thing. I mean, for the Russian, it's a good thing. For the Ukrainian, it's a bad thing, but is a sign. Is a sign that things are slowly being eroded to the point that they need stuff that previously they had in abundance. So it's very important to understand this, because otherwise we fail to see where each weapon system has its own effect. And this list alone is dramatic, because being able to supply all this type of ammunition also on different system which rely on different ammunition of the same caliber is a nightmare. And also, as one friend in Tochnyi said to me, remember that not all the units get the same equipment. So you may have 2 or 3 weapons with 2 or 3 different caliber, or the same caliber of mixed type. So you can understand, if you start to hit very hard those ammo depot, the logistical center, and so on, how big the impact can be on the front line. And of course, and at the moment, we haven't seen that big collapse because the strike haven't been sufficient, because of course there is a lot that can be hit. So
Well,
yeah.
I want to say that the strike on Toropets probably had quite a large impact on the Russians' the Russian operation in Kursk.
Yeah.
And we can see that they have not achieved what they set out to do, and they're not going to achieve what they wanted to achieve within 2024. Ukraine is going to still have some part of Kursk Oblast occupied by the end of the year.
And this is also the reason why they are calling the North Korean. And another point that I want to say is that I try to don't mix. I agree with you. I feel that as well, but also there are different factors in Kursk. We have seen, and you know better than me, we have seen an incredible amount of anti-ISR drone campaign, which have probably had a very large impact on the ability of using long-range munition like Iskander or artillery strike on Ukrainian position. And so we can delve in these later. So, but yeah, I think that there are more things that happen that have changed the course of that counteroffensive. And
by the way, this is all the geolocated strikes on, or interceptions of surveillance drones and Lancet drones.
And Z is Zala, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can see how many drone the Russian have deployed in that area. And this is why, for example, now I do a small rant about UK. There was have been decided to dismiss a very old platform from the 2008, an ISR drone. We had 45 Erland. So just to say, this is the level of attrition that weapon will suffer in such an environment. And Zala drone, and in general ISR drone from Russia, they are not that bad. Keep away the Orlan 10, especially at the early stage. They don't have, they are not bad platform. In fact, they were a threat to the point that Ukrainian have to come out with a solution. which honestly I think is quite effective. And there is a very nice article wrote by Artem on our website. I don't know if you want to show very rapidly, because I think it's a very nice article. Yeah, this one.
Yeah, I guess that's a good segue to giving some promo to the latest article that we published. Artem has been geolocating all the FPV interceptions of fixed-wing type drones. This article is quite comprehensive, but I want to say that thank you so much to Chris again for his graphics, and for Artem to put together such a nicely illustrative article of how successful this campaign against ISR drones and Lancets have been with the FPV drones alone. And if you count in that there are also other interceptions with manpads and electronic warfare and some SAM systems, ground-based air defense systems, the attrition rate on Russian ISR drones is very high. He goes into some very interesting stats. So please go and check out this article. One thing I want to promote is that you can click on this link and then you'll get the map I just had up, where it shows all the interceptions on Andrew's map that are geolocated. And you can also read this article in Ukrainian. The link is in the bottom. It's on Militarny. So this article has been posted both on the Militarny in the Ukrainian version and on Tochnyi.info in an English version. These drones have in large amount been fundraised. So Artem links to the two different fundraisers that have been fundamental in funding drones and the production of drones. So Dronefall is one of them. Sky Rosorits, which means something like cutting Russians from the sky, is one of the I think that's Sternenko. Pretty sure, yeah, that's Sternenko's fundraiser. Those have also been produced by the Wild Hornets. So that's a shout out again to our friends at Wild Hornets that have been with us a couple of times on the stream. So yeah, you can also find the data set that Artem published open source here. Okay, I think we can move on. Thank you so much, Daniele.
Oh, no worries. In reality, there is a little bit more. I would like just to underline two points, and then I close this. So the first one is the fact that overall we can say that long-range strike weapon can be used in different ways. Okay, just to make it clear. The first one is counterpopulation, and now this is known also as deterrence through retaliation. Now, this is a topic that most analysts and most strategists is a very shady area, because of course you are going to hit civilian target or civilian target that are used with a dual scope of military one. Now, in the article, I move a bit on what Russia have done, and you can see that there is a pie chart that show essentially the incredible amount of Shahed drone that have been used against the civilian target, in particular energy infrastructure, 56%, which is a huge amount considering at the beginning, which was just a tiny fraction. So this shows also us that Russia is doing its best to keep good missile for for particular strike, because we know that they have missile probably enough. Mirko also last time told us that most of the time they do like three big attack, and that's it. It's over. Then we will see the next year. And this graph, for example, show the effect of long-range strikes from the Russian on Ukrainian energetic infrastructure. Just at the opening of the war, they had a very big drop from 37.6 gigawatt to just 13.6. So this is the decline in power capacity, power generation capacity, not the total output of the country. So how much they were capable of producing. And then you can see that there was a bit rise thanks to help from Europe. But then the last strike in the summer, where not in the summer, few months ago in October, caused no, in the summer, was in the summer, caused the destruction of a couple of turbine module of an hydro plant, and also the destruction of a thermal plant. And you can see the drop, and Ukraine never recovered from that big drop. And this is a very big issue for Ukraine, because Ukraine has a peak of around 13, 17 gigawatt. So this means that if they need more energy, they have to cut power to the civilians. Okay, and so this is why you see all these power outage also planned, because you need, when a peak appear, the energy company have to deal with that. They cannot allow the peak to be overcome, so they have to find energy, and they find energy by lowering down the usage from other customer, essentially the population. So Ukraine.
Question. Why isn't it possible for Ukraine to import the energy?
Yes, the energy that they import sometimes comes mostly from Poland, if I'm not mistaken. The main problem is that Ukraine before the war was mostly exporting. Think about Moldova. There are problems even in Moldova. Moldova has a huge issue now because you cannot import from Ukraine, and so they have to rely on other countries. And also this means that the energy is sometime you have issues in the transmission as well. So this doesn't mean that they cannot ask for more energy coming from Poland, but this is the self-reliance. So this is how much they can do on their own. Okay, so for example, if they need, there is a frameworks within the European Union, and there are plans of European Union supporting this aspect in particular. I think there was an article released from the Minister of Ukraine for energy about this. When I was drafting this table, I read about that. So there are plans in place to try to minimize this, but the problem is so big that you cannot just plug on like because there is essentially only Poland, essentially, which is actually very well connected. And also, you may have a problem because if Russia hit also that connection, you may then be in very big trouble. So you can have to increase its own resilience anyway. Okay, so but the point is just to show how effective can be this type of strike. Of course, they are risky. There are problem with that because you are effectively striking, for example, a substation. So a substation can serve many things, including hospitals. So this is why probably Ukraine is doing this in a very limited way, not only because they have drones for this as well. But they have done this, for example, in Kursk at the beginning of their operation. So this is also a reply to people that say, "Oh, Russia is fighting with one hand tied." In reality, not. It's Ukraine that is limiting herself or has been limited by the West. And and this was just the last point, because then of course you have other ways in which you can strike. As we said, you can do strategic interdiction, so trying to disrupt logistic. We have discussed that. But then there is also counterforce, so trying to engage military asset like a very large logistic place as the 120th, or training grounds. That's something that has been done only with HIMARS at the moment. No, I think a strike with ATACMS happened as well, but not in Russia. And last but not least, counter leadership and command post. And on this point, we can say that the attack with the 12 Storm Shadow in Kursk was essentially an example of that. In that strike, we know that a serious amount of officers has been injured or killed, and this was also the event that led Putin to do that strike on Dnipro with an intermediate ballistic missile, showing its weakness and its inability to protect his own officer within Russia. So repeating this type of strike is fundamental as well, because also on how and on this, you guys probably know much better than me. Being able to cut the heads of who is in command in the Russian military organization, it's way more important sometimes, because they don't have the same culture of NCOs or more low-level officers that we have. So by removing and hitting their command center, where they have personnel there of high value, this will increase the likelihood of arriving to a more positive condition on the front line. And that's all. Sorry, I just wanted to conclude with this, because this was also a very good connection with something that happened in Kursk recently.
Yeah, thank you. I think the point is, if Ukraine is able to strike Russian capabilities of one kind, they kind of also deter Russia from doing that towards Ukraine. If Ukraine replies with a strike on energy production that is within, of course, the legal set of rules of engagement and the laws of war that Ukraine adheres to, then that will deter Russia from doing it towards Ukraine again. But they have still not done so with Western supplied long-range strike capabilities, and I think that should happen soon, or else we're going to see more and more attacks of these kind. Yeah, thank you so much, Daniele. I think I will try to introduce Gesh or Geschlittert a little bit better than we had him, because last time Geschlittert was on, we had kind of a busy panel. So, well, Gesh or Geschlittert is one of the people that is now currently in Andrew's basement, and that's how I got to know him better as well. He's following a very particular set of data that he is retrieving, and I think you can present a little bit about what you're doing and also for which project that is, Gesh. And thank you so much for being here.
Well, one project that I'm contributing to is the year control map. I mean, you likely know it. What I do in particular is I help with updating Russian unit positions, because most positions here are normally being updated via geolocations, but geolocations present a very lackluster data set, because for a lot of units you never actually get a geolocation. Some units don't actually have social media, especially on the Russian side, where they are less dependent on fundraisers for some units, because on the Ukrainian side you have nearly every single unit has a social media channel. But yeah, so what I do is I search particular channels for MIA data, so Russian soldiers that went missing, Russian soldiers that are being missed by their relatives, and those relatives often provide a lot of interesting information, together with which unit it is, where the unit is, when it was there, and also the amount of people that are missing from the unit also indicates how heavily is this unit involved, how many people is it losing, etc. It's all, yeah. So this is basically what I do. The year control map is one of the projects that I'm contributing to. And first of all, before I present all the the other small points that I want to present today. Sorry, my stuff won't be nearly as pretty as the stuff that has been presented so far. It's really not my strong suit to make something visually pleasing. But yeah, I want to first of all thank the people that I'm working with, because without them it would be impossible that I've learned so much in the last months and that I get all the info that I'm getting. So first of all, Orbit and Joya, he hasn't been really having social media so far, but he's now also online. He's mostly doing geolocations and Russian order of battle. Then Imi Moklasen, most people know him. He's doing also Russian order of battle and geolocations. Sirdo, he is an expert on Ukrainian order of battle. And the guy who all got to know these people, Defman. Yeah. So I just wanted to get this out of the way because I think it's important to also, do that. So what I want to talk today is there have been some developments in the with Russian units. There's the 336th Russian Naval Infantry Brigade. This brigade hasn't really seen combat at all in the last year, I would say. Before that, it has been deployed around Yurodzhaine, Staromayorsk, and has been fighting there. And roughly a year ago, it has been put off the line and likely somewhere in the country. But recently, with the big push in Vuhledar, we have seen at least parts of the brigade being committed again. We have seen a lot of MIAs and even sleeping Russian soldiers that have surfaced around Vuhledar and Zaporizhzhia. And the current thought is that they likely help with the push around Brzezinivka and Vuhledar to push towards Novoukrynka. So my data for this is, I will present it in a second. So yeah, another point that I want to make is every Russian unit has a unique 5-digit ID, and for the 336 it's 06017. And here we see that at around October 11th, one of them didn't come back. And it's not the only one that didn't come back, especially for this very time period between 5th of October and 14th of October. A lot of Russian soldiers of this unit have suddenly gone missing. I mean, I can just show two more examples of it.
By the way, can you maybe zoom in the webpage a bit so that it's easier to see? There, yeah. That's a lot better.
Of course. As you see, again, 14th of October. And why I think they have been deployed to likely Vuhledar is, wait a second.
So I think it's interesting how you connect these kind of small pieces of information to how to where and what units were deployed in Ukraine. I think that's a very interesting way of connecting the dots and placing it on the map.
Yeah, it's you have to collect a lot of data to actually make the overview, because all the individual data points aren't that interesting, because you also have to know the relatives are often making mistakes. They often don't really know where the unit is. They often miswrite the unit ID. It's very much human after all. So you also have to work with a lot of noise in the data, and by gathering enough data, you can filter out the noise way better and to actually get the interesting one. So yeah,
you need to zoom that one in a lot.
Yeah, I will zoom it again. So yeah, here we actually have the first location for the unit that has been provided. They were in the Zaporizhzhia unit and have been moved according to this post. I sadly can't stream the post to it because it has been deleted by now. That often happens as well. That's why you need to archive. They have been deployed between Vuhledar and Petrovskoye. That's why on the map I've placed them here, and this also very much aligns with the front line at that time. You can, for example, look at this at the deep state map because they actually do legacy front lines. And if you look around the 14th of October at the Vuhledar area, they have been pushing between Brechistivka and Vuhledar towards Novokrenka and Bohoyavalenka. So yeah, it's for me it's an interesting development because it's one of the reserve units of the Russian army, and this unit and other units as well have recently been committed, and this is for me an indication, together with some more stuff that I will present later, that the Russians are facing very severe manpower issues, especially in the Kursk region, but I will come to that later. So yeah, this is about the 336th. Let's close this.
By the way, that social media page was Vkontakte, which is basically a Russian port of Facebook that is very popular in Russia. For those that don't know.
Yep. So now we are kind of moving towards Kursk, because that's where a lot of the interesting stuff is happening with the heavy battles going on. Just an overview: Russia is currently trying to push from the west and from the north. In the north, it's mainly the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, and from the west, it's mainly the 855th Naval Infantry Brigade and Russian VDV units with the 174th. So basically, all of the 106th Russian Airborne Brigade are attacking here as well around Darino. They recently took Darino, but they're facing heavily casualties there, and there's heavy fighting going on there basically every day. So, and for this region, we also have seen an announcement or indications that a new unit has been deployed, or not really a new unit, but a unit that has been off the line as well for a long time. And this unit, as you can see here, is the 104th Air Assault Regiment. Before this deployment in Kursk, it has last been sighted in February this year, so nearly 9 months ago, around Robotine, like together with other units of it's part of the 76th Russian Air Assault Division, and it has been fighting at Robotine. But from February onwards, it hasn't really seen much combat. Like in between, there was like some individual soldier going missing, or some individual soldier being attached to another unit, but the unit itself as a whole hasn't really seen that much combat. And this again shows how much focus the Russians put on Kursk. Like their reserve units are being put there as well with the 104th. And so my data for this is, I want to begin with the first tease of the unit, which has been provided by Kriegsforscher. He's a Russian soldier. Sorry, not a Russian. Oh my God, it's a Ukrainian soldier. A Ukrainian soldier. I'm very sorry for that. In the 36th Marine Brigade, he's part of the drone company. It's called Olds. And they are releasing a lot of videos from Kursk. And recently, on the 11th of November, he has announced that the 104th Regiment is moving from Zaporizhia, where they were likely somewhere in the back and not really on the front line, towards Kursk. That was the first tease. And whenever you see stuff like that, you get a bit more cautious, or you look up the unit a bit more. And on 17th of November, he announced that the 76th Division, which the 104th is part of, is now attacking on his flank, which is, as I said, here the western flank. This is where his unit is fighting, and a lot of those dots on the map are strikes from his unit and destroyed Russian vehicles. And so, and recently he also has announced that they have taken out the first units, the first vehicles of that unit. I mean, I really show the video because I don't know if there's any stuff in there that can't be shown on YouTube. But basically, it's a lot of Russian vehicles being destroyed. And additional data that is supporting this has now surfaced a few days ago. It was sent to me by IMI or Moklassen. And so we have the first Russian missing in action soldier from Kursk, from this unit. I will show you now. It's Karlander Maxim Vladimirovich. And on the 16th of November, he was last contacted by his mother in Kursk, in Zeletsnogorsk, and has very likely since then moved to the front line and, well, gone missing.
Did he fall asleep?
He likely fell asleep. We never know for sure, but I mean, you whoever follows the Kursk front line knows what's happening there. There's a lot of Russians falling asleep there.
It's what I think is very interesting is here, like they even post the date of birth. They post a lot of very, very personal and kind of private information.
Oh yeah, I mean, this post is not even that detailed. We get a lot more information, which can be very interesting. We sometimes know how long have they been training and which training grounds have they been training, etc. And all this can put together to make very interesting data sets. I mean, I will do a small announcement later for the training stuff because I'm working on this as well. And so yeah.
Interesting.
Wanted to get over this with the 104th. I mean, it's not the only unit of the 76th Air Assault Regiment that is in Kursk. There's another unit as well that has seen combat when the Ukrainians tried to push in around Veseloa. Wait, now I need to find it. That village again. Here. So another unit of the 76th has been fighting around Veseloa when the Ukrainians tried to push in here. They sadly didn't manage to take Kurakhove, so it was sadly a failure. But the 234th has been fighting there, but also likely not in full compartment because there was not that many MIAs. Like if you look at the other units in this area, they are facing huge amount of losses. It's insane how many you get every day. And again, Moklassen is doing some work on this as well. He's compiling a lot of the MIA data for the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, for example, who is, I mean, it's just, I think they have lost thousands so far in the current offensives in Kursk. It's mind-blowing what's happening there.
Can I ask you a question, Gesh?
Yes.
Can you share with us, because I'm not following that area at all, so I'm clueless.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know more or less which is the most common cause of going to sleep on the Russian side there?
The thing is, there is a lot of bias applied here, because you don't see the people who fall asleep on mines. You don't see the people who fall asleep on artillery. You have so much data from drones. So, I mean, from what we can see, the drones are doing a ton of work. But that's the problem. From what we can see, our information set is just so limited that I can't really make a confident assessment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And mainly is a FPV drone or still a lot of drone drop? Or 50-50?
I think more FPV, but this is not really my area of expertise, I have to say. So I'll take all about this with a grain of salt. This is much more like Andrew's team. They're doing a lot of work on this. They're very, very knowledgeable on it.
Okay, thank you very much, Gesh.
You're welcome. So, and because I've said before that the Russians are facing huge issues in Kursk, I have some indications for this. In the recent 2 months, there were a lot of Russian units that are normally deployed in other areas, where suddenly soldiers of that unit have shown up in Kursk. And the current theory is that units that have been training on some training grounds. I mean, one of the training grounds, for example, I can show you in a second, is in Kursk itself. And the current theory is that those units, instead of getting sent to the unit that they're actually attached to, are getting sent to Kursk instead, attached to, for example, the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade. A lot of, for example, the 15th Motor Rifle Brigade is one of the brigades that is fighting in Pokrovsk. Mainly, like they have been taking part in the capture of Selidova and Novohodivka. But in October and this September, suddenly some of the soldiers showed up in Kursk. And I can show you this as well. Give me a second. And there also is one training ground in Kursk. It's around here. And
is that far in?
I can
deep in Kursk? Yeah, that's behind Kursk.
It's way behind.
City.
Yeah, it's behind Kursk city, and a lot of people are training there as well. It's one of the bigger training grounds.
Well within reach of ATACMS, by the way.
Yeah, but as far as we know, not really been struck. So yeah, about the 15th, for example, we have here two. Oh, the post has been deleted. This is a big issue, but I can just show you the other. I mean, I have it saved in the background, but see here, this is the unit ID of the 15th, and instead of getting sent to Pokrovsk to the 15th Motor Rifle Brigade, they have instead been sent to Kursk. And this is not only the case for them, but also a lot of other units I can show you. This is the 1232nd Motor Rifle Regiment. This one is at Makiivka in Pokrovsk. So I can just search it on the map. So this unit is normally here. But instead of getting sent here and reinforcing this unit, they have been sent to Kursk. And what's also kind of funny, for me at least, is he's a Marine now. Well, I don't think he will be a Marine for long, judging from what's happening there.
You think he's going to fall asleep before
yes.
the career is taking form?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, so at least you're showing some evidence to what people have said is not taking place, merely units being moved, or at least personnel resources.
It's mostly personnel. It's mostly personnel.
It's not. So the thing is, we don't see the units necessarily transferring operational area towards Kursk, even though that also happens. But we see their personnel resources being transferred over to Kursk.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think they do this to kind of communicate something differently, or do you think they do it just for operational purposes?
I think they're kind of desperate. I think they're losing so many men in Kursk that they don't have another way to staff those units. This is a big problem for them. They're losing so many there that if they don't send those groups of soldiers there, they can't attack anymore. I think that's actually what's the case. I mean, I have some more units that have been, at least, for example, of the 177th Naval Infantry Regiment, which is at Bakhmut, around Kurakhove. The 2nd battalion of them has likely been moved to Kursk as well. I mean, there's again Kriegsforscher has announced it some weeks ago that the battalions of the 107th has been moved, and we also have evidence now for this. I can show.
So the thing is that they move small elements or just personnel directly towards
yes
to Kursk, and then this might result in some of the analysts not picking up that resources are being moved, but because they don't track battalions, they track regiments and brigades.
Often it's not even battalions, I think. Often it's literally just the people from the training ground.
Understood.
It's but for this case, it's likely that battalions of the 177th has been moved. It's we have two. Do we have two? No, only this one. We have this one MIA. Oh, wait, I think I have a second one actually. And you have to also know what we see here is only a small portion from the soldiers that are actually getting lost. This is only missing in action. This is not slip falling. It's like the people where the relatives know that they are no longer under the living. They don't write here. They don't tell it most of the time. Or where the relatives don't use social media, which is also the case for a lot of Russians, I think. Like not every Russian is using social media. Not every Russian is announcing that the relative has been missing. So it's always only a very small portion what we can see. It's also very, very important to know. And another thing is, which is also very interesting, at the beginning of the Kursk offensive, I don't know if you remember, but there has been a very, very devastating HIMARS strike in Rilsk.
Oh, absolutely remember that, yes.
Exactly. And the unit that has been hit there is the 22nd Motor Rifle Regiment. And the 22nd Motor Rifle Regiment is part of the 72nd Motor Rifle Division. So the 22nd, wait. Is still in Kursk, but there's a catch here. I mean, both the 22nd Motor Rifle Regiment and the 30th Motor Rifle Regiment are part of the 72nd, but they are not really a cohesive unit anymore. They have been depleted so much that they started to attach the remaining soldiers to the Marine brigades. For example, a lot of the 22nd has been attached to the 810th, and some to the 155th, and the 30th Motor Rifle Regiment has been mostly attached to the 155th, and we actually have a lot of evidence for that as well. I can show for the which shows how much losses they have had, because they're not really operational units anymore. And what's also kind of interesting for the 22nd, it was basically the first deployment in Kursk. I can zoom in again. So yeah, this is the 30th who has been attached to, we have here 3 cases at least, where this unit has been attached to the 155th instead of being an individual unit anymore. So they are losing so much fighting power in those other units that they have to consolidate them. And it's very interesting to me if the 72nd Motor Rifle Division even exists anymore after what's happening right now in Kursk.
Interesting. Thank you.
And one more thing. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
well, actually, it's maybe 2 more things. Another thing has been happening recently. I've been writing on this on Twitter, namely one of the Russian CBRN regiments. So most people don't know, but CBRN regiments are the units that are operating the TOS launchers of the. I mean, the TOS launchers, the big explosions. Let's say it like that.
So, but by the way, CBRN means chemical, biological, radiological, and what's the last one?
Nuclear.
Nuclear.
Well, no, wait, I think so. Yeah.
No, yeah. It's anyways.
It's basically NBC units.
Yes, and they can be either for protection or deployment of such measures. And the Russians have placed the thermobaric weapons under those regiments.
Exactly. And what's interesting about this one, the second CBRN regiment, is that it likely doesn't exist anymore. They have basically disbanded the unit and attached the soldiers to the 15th Motor Rifle Brigade, as I said earlier. These are the guys that are fighting in Pokrovsk and have seen staggering losses there as well. Like it's kind of a meme for the people who are working with them, or who are dealing with the data. They have been losing also so many men that one of the CBRN regiment. It has been disbanded, and its soldiers have all been sent to the 15th Motor Rifle Brigade. I mean, we have 5 different cases for it. I mean, here's one, and I can't really zoom in for this, but they, as I said, in around August, or July, August, they have been disbanded and all been attached to the 15th, and are now fighting as infantry and storming Ukrainian positions there. And it's still going on now. I mean, the latest I have for them is that from the 22nd of September. And it's very unusual that those units lose so many people. So that's how I found out about this, because I was like, why do I have so many MIAs from this very unit? What's happening there? So yeah, this is another case of Russia trying to get manpower from a kind of, unusual sources. Like,
but disbanding a regiment and merely transferring the soldiers to a different unit, is Russia basically eliminating their capabilities and just transferring manpowers into meatwave attack?
You have to know those are specialists normally. Like the people in the CBRN regiments are specialists. But yeah, they are now specializing, running towards Ukrainian drones.
Yep.
So yeah, this is basically the basic points I wanted to make. There's 2 more things I want to say. Namely, quite recently, there has been some posts on Russian social media about the 20th Motor Rifle Division. Wait, I need to search. Hoppala. 1 second. So yeah, they have announced that of the 20th Motor Rifle Division, 1 regiment has deserted. And this is something I have not yet fully researched, but I want to research, and I will research in the near future. And the thing is, even before this announcement, I was seeing some very, very weird stuff going on. So some more context. The 20th Motor Rifle Makiivka. We have to go to Makiivka. I mean, many people don't know, but what's going on in Makiivka is also kind of insanity. That's the area of operation basically for this division. We have here the 237th, the 252nd, and the 245th Motor Rifle Regiment. Those people are constantly assaulting Makiivka on foot. They're basically getting issued no vehicles whatsoever. All the drone attacks that we see are basically on foot soldiers, even though those are on paper tank regiments, motor rifle regiments. I don't know actually what's going on there. It's really weird stuff. They are losing also incredible amounts of men. They are like, it's sometimes it's very, very weird. So what I've been seeing recently is that some of the soldiers within the 252nd are getting transferred around within the division, which is not something that happens normally. So I've seen like 3 or 4 posts recently that they were previously in the 252nd and now they're in the 245th. So I'm very sure that something happened in the 252nd. I'm not yet sure what exactly happened, and I want to find this out. And as soon as I know, I will try to present it as well. And another topic that I'm working on, that I hopefully be able to present soon, is Russian training grounds. So, as I said, I mean, I've recently shown the one here, because we don't know about a lot of the training grounds in Ukraine as well. There are a lot of areas, especially in Luhansk, where there's very big concentrations of Russian units. So basically, all of the units up here at the Kupiansk direction are getting supplied by training camps that are around the Luhansk area here. I mean, I will go more in detail when I properly present it. But yeah, that's basically it from me. I hope you found something interesting in this presentation. And if you have any question, feel free to PM me. I mean, you can do it on Twitter or Blue Sky. I have the same name on both platforms, Geschlittert. So yeah, or Discord. You can also add me on Discord if you want and ask about some stuff. I don't mind that at all.
Cool. Thank you so much, Gesh. This is super interesting stuff, and I see comments from the chat that they like this content. There was one question: are Kadyrovites still in the Kursk area?
Yes, we have 2 of the regiments in the Kursk area, namely the 200. This one. I mean, for this one, we have also seen elements of them getting attached to the Marine brigades, which is kind of funny. But yeah, they are attacking together with the 155th in the western area of Kursk. And then we have another regiment, the 204th, which is more of a special purpose regiment. We have seen a lot of the drone attacks. They are operating in the northern Kursk area and doing a lot of drone strikes there, but also losing men there. I mean, I have a recent MIA here. He has been missing near Bartinka, which is right here. Right. I don't know. Here. Has been missing in the area of Bartinka. So yeah, they are operating around this area. At least 2 of the Kadyrov regiments are still operating here. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think
that was basically all I wanted to present today.
Thank you so much. This is super interesting. I think that was the question we got for your segment. There's been a lot of comments, but yeah. Again, thanks.
Thank you.
Is there any one of the other people on the panel that have any questions for Gesh? There was one more, of course.
I mean, I know this is all very, very technical. A lot of the time, this is very, very technical. I mean, it's just very boring data most of the time.
I don't know. It's super interesting. And I think a lot of our audience are interested in this stuff. So Raven also asked one question. Of course, this is a question that everyone has. Are there any signs that North Koreans are used as rotational forces in Kursk?
I haven't seen any evidence of it yet. That's all I can say about it. I mean, as long as I don't have evidence, it's not happening in my this is a good assumption to make. Like, as long as you don't have evidence of something, don't assume that it's happening. I mean, there is talk about them being used somewhere in the rear to free up Russian units in that way. This is maybe happening. I can very much see it happening. It makes sense. But so far, I mean, it's a huge political risk as well to actually commit them to the front line, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because this very much is an escalation.
Yeah. I mean, there was the strike against the command post, which was some sort of...
In Belgorod, yeah.
No, the one in Kursk.
I thought it was in Belgorod.
Okay. No, it was in Kursk. It was
a
sanatorium.
Yeah, true. It was here on the 25th.
And do you remember anything specific about those messages about injured North Koreans?
No, not yet. The thing is, you have to consider that there's most of the time a 1 to 2 week delay, from something happening and data coming in, because the relatives are most of the time not writing that someone is missing if he hasn't contacted them for like a few days, but it's like 1 or 2 or 3 weeks. They start to look out for them. And yeah, so far I don't have any information about MIAs from this event, but it doesn't mean that there aren't any.
So you got get a tap into North Korean social media platforms then.
Yeah, well, the social media, the North Korean social media platforms will be very interesting to get in there. Yeah, but I hope to get some information somewhere else,
Yeah, that I think that's going probably to be a sort of a black hole in OSINT, unfortunately. But that's just the nature of bringing in forces from a country which is, basically blocked off from the rest of the world, where people are living in some sort of open concentration camp every day. So
yes, but I'm very sure we will see footage and information from other Russian channels, because they normally don't shut up. And if there's something interesting happening regarding the North Koreans, I'm very sure we hear something from one of the other Russian channels.
Yep.
That is somewhat involved. But yes, I think I will stop sharing my screen now.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Joseph, are you still with us?
I am.
What do you think? Should we? I think there were a couple of questions.
Yeah, if we have any Q&A.
Yeah, there's one about maybe Nordic countries can donate huge amount of snowballs to Ukraine in relation to the fact that it's the weather is turning.
This one's
towards winter.
obviously for me. Now, growing up in Arizona, of course, we used a lot of snowmobiles. Now, go ahead, Erlen.
I mean, the Ukraine is using some snowmobiles, but I think that it's not going to be a big thing. I'm a big proposer of infantry using skis and snowmobiles in the winter, but it's a very specialized kind of warfare method. I do know that some of the mountain Jaeger regiments do both use skis and snowmobiles, but I think it's going to be very limited for Ukraine.
Erlen, I have kind of a weird follow-up question. I think it was last year you made a thread that was like about kind of winter gear, winter survival. We're kind of approaching up on the winter. I don't know if you've seen like good footage yet. We're probably going to start seeing some of the kit the guys have. Do you think we're going to see an improvement this year in winter techniques, or do you think I don't know, it's going to be about the same?
Oh yeah, for sure. The Ukrainian army and also the other military units are a lot better equipped for winter warfare now than they were the first and the second winter. One of the reasons why I know is that we are seeing a lot less requests for winter gear, even though that's still something people highly appreciate. So that's one indicator, but also I've seen just basically better winter gear from the soldiers, and also you can see that there is a lot more experience with dealing with just basically living outside the whole year for a lot of the soldiers. They've learned probably from each other and also from gaining knowledge both through training, where people that have been trained by Western militaries that are very good at winter warfare, like Norway, Sweden, Finland, has injected some knowledge into the Ukrainian military, and then probably that has by itself spread. And also Ukrainians know about winter. It's not something that they was, Ukraine can be a very cold country, but it's there's a big difference from a person that lives in a city to learn how to dress in winter in a big city, and then suddenly living outside the whole time. And that has probably been a big learning curve. Fortunately, I see mainly good things now. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be an interesting segment, just because it's pretty cold now, I would say. It's safe to say, and it might be good this year to do another, just kind of maybe some videos we see that are interesting, and just the weather affects so much, kind of as you mentioned. The guys are kind of used to being outside more. That kind of changes. And then thermals work differently. I don't know. There's a whole lot to winter warfare, so it might be interesting to just kind of cover some of that with some examples. But yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think that was. I think there were some questions during Daniela's segment, but I think he basically answered them as he went. So I don't think we have any more questions now.
Okay. Well, I guess we should probably wrap up then. Yeah, we're about 30 minutes over, so it's probably a good time, huh?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I want to thank our listeners, of course. Thank you, live chat, for listening in live and asking all your questions. We always appreciate your helps us dial in on like what you want to know, and if we're explaining things clearly. So we definitely appreciate that. We want to thank, of course, our excellent panel this week. We had some good contributors. Thanks, German Aid to Ukraine, for sending us his video. Even when he calls in sick, he still does his segment, which is I always appreciate that level of professionalism, of course. Thank you to Bionade for his presentation on Ukrainian reconstruction. Thanks to Daniela for presenting his new article, which, of course, you can find his article and all our other great articles at Tochnyi.info. That's our website. We publish a lot of information there from our researchers. It's always great to go check it out. We're really proud of all the work they do, so we can't plug in enough. And I definitely want to thank, Erlen was like, we're going to have a guest on today. And I was like, oh, okay, what's his name? And he's said the name many times, and I don't know if I can. So I'm just going to go with Gesh. I want to thank Gesh.
You went the easy route, I saw you.
Yeah. I was like, until I saw it spelled, I don't think I could even comprehend it. It was like he said the name, and I would just like my brain would blank, and then he'd be like, "You got it?" And I'd be like, "No." Anyway, I want to thank you so much for coming on. We always appreciate, as Erlen said, someone coming on and giving us like granular information like that. I think the audience really appreciates it. And yeah, you're welcome back anytime you want to present anything. We're happy to have you on. And yeah, well, always happy to see guys from the basement come on the stream.
It was my honor.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Danielle, I think you wanted to say something on your way out, yeah?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would like just to say that I'm currently fundraising for an engine for a drone unit, which does mainly, not only repair and assistance to drone units. We are 120 pounds from finishing it. So if anyone want to jump on my profile, I have the fundraise pinned to my profile. So if you want to donate or spread it, very much appreciated. I have it both on Blue Sky and X, of course. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us today. And this is the video from Texas. Is the main person that works in this group, and they are in need of a new engine for their truck.
Yeah, thanks.
Link to the fundraiser will be in the description of the video, Daniela.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, so yeah, with that, I'll just ask everyone, please do check us out. We're on Twitter and we're on Blue Sky, if that's your thing. We do try to post like updates and summaries of the articles and things like that. I think the website's probably the best place to go if you want like a consolidated place for all our stuff. But yeah, we definitely appreciate people following us on the social medias and spreading our work around on all those platforms. And of course, please do like and subscribe on YouTube. Tell your friends. We did enjoy very much our recent collaboration with Jake Bro. That was an interview that happened the previous Wednesday. So if you want to check out that stream, we think it was an interesting interview, a lively discussion. So yeah, check that out. And of course, as I mentioned, we got a couple new articles up. So go to the website, Tochnyi.info, and check them out there. I'm going to go ahead and stop plugging things now and sign off with a Slava Ukraini.
Heroям slava.
Heroям slava.